Previously on Obsessed with Guitars!
So those are the quirks and features of the Mesa Boogie Mark V amplifier. Now it's time to get it mic'd up and give it a PaulScore. Okay, so playing the Mesa Boogie Mark V. So here's what I've got going on. I've got a Shure SM57 that is 3 inches away from the grill cloth, and it's right between the dust cap and the cone. I have the amplifier set to the John Petrucci settings. If you've never watched it, John Petrucci did an excellent kind of demo of this amplifier where he just goes over some of his favorite settings. I'm going to derivate from these a lot, because I want to give you the comprehensive overview of what this amplifier sounds like, the good and the bad, because, well, if you're going to buy one of these, you kind of need to know what it can and cannot do. Now, I'm going to start off on the clean channel, and this is John's recommendation for the clean sound that he likes. So this is set to fat, the EQ is off, the gain is just shy of noon, the master is just above noon, the presence is about 1 o'clock, treble's about 2, mid is actually really dialed out. He has it set to about 9 o'clock. The bass is at about 11 o'clock. The center switch is set to bold. It's in the bottom position. Now, I don't have any reverb turned on in the back. I don't have the settings on anything lower than 90 watts. Everything's 90 watts right now. It's in full power, and I will affect all of these as we go along. The output, or aka master volume, is set to about 10 o'clock. I'm not going to worry about the solo right now, so we're just going to hear what this amp can do in these John Petrucci settings, and then we'll go away from all of them in just a minute. The guitar I'm going to be playing right now, I will go through a couple of different guitars, is my 94 Gibson Les Paul Classic. It has an EMG 5766 combo in it. So let's start out here. Bridge, full, how clean this is. Really spanky clean. There is no hint of breakup here. Even with a lot of input signal from the pickups, I'm not getting any actual tube breakup right now. So it's pretty loud in the room too. I'm wearing some hearing protection just to be on the safe side. So here it is in the center position. Neck, obviously. I'm going to turn on the EQ. As you can see, I have it set to John and, well, James Hetfield's kind of favorite Mesa V curve. A little bit more in the 240 hertz and 2200 hertz. James would actually have these probably closer to the line, but I want to not just completely scoop out the sound. And one thing is, on this 5-band EQ, it's really a good idea to not just drop this center all the way down. So let's turn on the EQ. I'm going to leave all the other switches intact. So here's EQ on, EQ back off. Now we'll really be able to hear the interactivity of these selects. Wow. It just disappears. Ooh, that's boomy. All right, so now the 240. Really woody. Oh, now we're getting kind of a vocal. There's my mids. So what's really cool about the 5-band EQ is that you can foot switch it in, so you can actually use it as a lead boost if you want to, because you can get those mids and really jump out through the mix. So I'll put this back where it was. Oh, now we're got a blanket over the speaker. Oh gosh, it just disappears. That's spiky. That's woolly, you know. That's actually not bad. But what's interesting is the preset, as I mentioned when I was going over the quirks and features, this takes you to basically what Mesa says the optimal setting is. So let's go to preset. Actually, that is pretty nice. Let's just, because I have the volume here at about 4 o'clock, let's just see what happens as I turn it up. Whoa, that's loud. Really stays clean up to high volume. That's at about a little past 1 o'clock. See what happens to turning up to 3 o'clock. Ooh, so you can hear a lot more hiss. Look at that. That is intense here in the room. Let's turn you back to about 10 o'clock. Let's turn the EQ back off. Now let's go up to clean on the top. A lot less push there. Definitely a lot thinner. I'm going from fat to clean. So now let's go to tweed. A lot more gain in tweed. Oh my gosh. Actual breakup. Now let's turn it from bold to normal in this tweed setting. A lot less in your face. Really pushed, getting to break up. Now 45 watt. Let's go to 10 watt. Wow, that just disappears. In this, let's turn the gain up and the master up. Now let's hear how this sounds with the overall volume up. Ooh, yeah. Back off on the tone just a little bit here on the guitar. Okay, so now I'm on channel 2. This is, again, the suggested John Petrucci setting. And there is more gain on tap, I think, than he suggests there is. I really like how this sounds. This is going to be the top switch on crunch. The EQ is on, again, with the sliders. And it's ranging kind of this sort of Mesa V. And I have the gain really high. This is set actually just shy of the max. This is set to about 5 o'clock. The master is set about 11 o'clock. Presence set to a little less than 11 o'clock. Treble is set to 1 o'clock. Mid is set to 11 o'clock. And bass is set to about 11 o'clock. Again, this is 90 watts. And again, this is going to be in the bridge position. And of course, we have to hear what it sounds like in drop D. So as long as I've got the EQ engaged, let's hear how it sounds with that preset mode instead of the sliders mode. So here's with the preset depth knob getting turned around. Okay, so that's all of John Petrucci's settings. Let's go ahead and mess them up now. So let's go ahead and go into edge as opposed to crunch. Okay, yeah, I moved there from edge to crunch, and crunch definitely sounds better. Let's go down to Mark I. So this is trying to emulate the Mesa Boogie Mark I, aka Santana's boogie amplifier. Wow, that gets a lot more syrupy. Definitely much more liquidy. Boy, that's a lot of fun to play. That's a great, great lead sound. I'm really looking forward to channel 3 then, if the channel 2 sounds as good. So let's get even more Santana E and put it Mark I thick. funny enough, I actually prefer that mode with the preset instead of the manually done sliders. So let's back off the gain here. Back to crunch. Let's bring the master up a little bit here. Nice punchy, crunchy, kind of rhythmy 70s kind of sound. As long as we did it with the first channel, let's do it with the second channel, and let's mess with the output. And before we go to channel number 3, we have to, of course, mess with the power. So let's see here. This is 90 watts. $45. That's like half as loud in the room. Of course, it's half the power, so 10 watts. Yeah, that's really quiet. That's actually surprisingly quiet here in the room. So here, just jump from 10 watts to 90 watts. So 90. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, on to channel 3. Already we're getting a lot more hiss. So this is, again, John Petrucci's favorite setting for this. We have it set to Mark IV mode. The EQ is on, which is set to the sliders. The center switch is set to bright. Gain is about 1 o'clock. Master is about 11 o'clock. Presence about 11 o'clock. Treble is a little higher than it was on the second channel. It's about 2 o'clock. Mids 11 o'clock. Bass hovering a little above 10 o'clock. And of course, 90 watt mode. Really nice and liquidy. Neck pickup. Let's set the preset on the EQ. It just sounds, just from my ears in the room, sounds like the preset might be something that would sit in the mix a little better, but I really like how the manual is set sliders are really sounding on this. This is really cool. Okay, so just for completeness sake, let's turn off the EQ. Yeah, it needs the EQ on. Okay, so let's go to the Mark II C+ mode. Sliders are all on and set. It's a 90 watt mode and everything else is the same, set to bright. say I don't like it as much as the Mark IV setting. I think the Mark IV setting is more interesting. I think it is a little bit, a little hotter and more overdriven. Feels a little fuller. The Mark II C+ setting just sounds a little thinner to me. But, you know, again, to each his own here. Let's hear it with the extreme setting. Wow, okay, that's a lot louder. So there's a lot more gain on tap here. Wow, that's nuts. Let's go back to Mark IV mode. Even though it's still loud, it's just amazing how much less loud that sounds. Okay, and then cutting out the bright. Yeah, I definitely like it with the bright on. Okay, so let's hear how much gain there is in here. Gosh, it almost sounds like a Boss FZ2 or something like that. That is angry. Okay, let's back that back off. There's no reason to have that much gain in here. Master. Let's hear that with the preset slider. Yeah, I definitely like it better with the major sliders. All right, back to normal. Now let's hear the wattage, 45 watts. Not as much of a drop as I thought it would be, but definitely quieter, 10 watt. That's a bedroom amp level. And now let's see how much the reverb, how deep the reverb is there on channel 1. That's a really, really wet reverb. Oh my gosh. Okay, so that was the reverb. Now I'm going to start messing with the tube versus diode rectification, which of course only works in 45 watt mode. So let's turn it down to diode, or turn it from diode to gosh, I can talk, I promise. So turned it from diode to tube. Maybe it's psychosomatic, but I hear a difference. A little looser. I like that a lot, actually. That's a good sound. That's fun. Now, channel 2, let's get that reverb turned up. let's turn it to 45 watt. So 45 watt. And now let's turn it to tube rectification. A little greasier and slippy. That's actually pretty cool. I still think I like the tightness of the diode rectification more. Yeah, I like that. That's fun. Okay, back up to 90 watts, and now over to channel 3. All right, so now we're in channel 3, so now let's hear how it sounds with monster massive reverb on a high gain channel. Okay, so now let's go to triode. This is pentode. Triode. Yeah, definitely tighter in pentode and a little looser and greasier in triode. Not a lot of reduction in power, but a little. All right, so now I have switched over to the Variac power, and we're going back to channel 1. I'm not going to go through all the features, but I'm going to switch through the channels just to see if there's a real noticeable difference in tone. I got the 90 watts for everything. Yeah, definitely. We'll really hear a difference, I think, with the distortion channels. Yeah. Definitely a change in tone. That is interesting. Yeah, it's definitely more fluid, much easier to do legato kind of stuff on the Variac power. That's just awesome. Okay, let's plug in another guitar. So now I've grabbed a Stratocaster so you can hear what it sounds like with single coils. This is a Mexican player Strat. So here we go, bridge pickup. Bridge in middle. Middle position. Neck and middle. Neck. That sounds really nice. We'll hear that in a tweed. Yeah, that's nice. Tuning break. Let's hear channel 2 with this thing. Neck pickup. Let's do that in Mark 1 mode. Let's hear it in channel 3. The bridge pickup sounds about how you would think it would through a lot of gain. So that is the Mesa Boogie Mark V. Now, I'm going to be honest, I went into this not expecting to like this very much. I've come to not really like amps that have a lot of different knobs and switches and buttons and dials and all these different options, because I get option paralysis. I'm selling my Cherrytone AH50 because I just felt like, there's so much I don't use that I don't really need. It's a really, really interesting thing because I really like this amplifier a lot, like a lot. And I like the tweakability. I like how many different sounds I can get out of it, how much I can do with it. I'm not saying I'm going to buy one necessarily, but I got to be honest, I was thinking that I was going to say, oh yeah, there's people who said that the Mark II C+ mode isn't that great. Yeah, they're totally spot on. And, it's not as good as it should be. It's great. I really like this thing a lot. I'm going to say that I would be concerned about gigging just from the standpoint of when something breaks or goes wrong. There's a lot of complication here to this amplifier. That's something you have to consider in a live amp. Yes, you have all these sounds. It can do anything and everything. And it's an insane number of options. But at the same time, that also makes for a lot more to break. Especially because this isn't some digital snot box where all of this is just being selected through software. This is a physical thing existing in space. There's that single switch that tells this little diode to do something. So, you have to think about that. You have to make sure you have a good tech who can work on these things and can replace things as necessary, because there's a lot in this amplifier. But if you're looking for the tweakable dream, the amplifier that can do everything, one single amp that can be your bedroom amp, that can be a stage amplifier, then this is a really, really good choice. Well, enough of my yakking though about this thing. Let's just go ahead and give this thing a PaulScore. We're going to begin with the living room score, which looks at how this amplifier would perform as a fun home recording kind of play around amp. And we're going to start off in the styling category. Now, I love how the Mesa Boogie Mark V combo looks. It has the leather corners, the burgundy Tolex, the incredible looking basket weave, everything that you would want out of a really nice looking amp, except it doesn't quite match up to something like a green Mad Amp or a vintage orange, so it falls just shy of perfection and gets a 9 out of 10. As for the tone category, this thing does sound fantastic, but there are other amps that edge it out slightly in the living room score, so I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. As for reliability, well, this is a 3-channel Mesa Boogie with a lot of options on it, so there will be long-term reliability concerns, but if it's well maintained, you should be okay, so I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. As for the fun factor, this one's a no-brainer. This may be the most fun amplifier I have ever plugged into, and even in a living room, it still will be a blast to explore all of its features, so it's getting a 10 out of 10. As for the cool factor, there are some amps that would be cooler to see in someone's home studio or living room, like a vintage Mad amp, like a vintage Orange, perhaps a vintage Sun amplifier or a Dumble or something like that. And it is an expensive amplifier, but it's just not up there with the absolute highest, so I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 for a total of 43 out of 50 for the living room score. The stage score looks at how this amplifier would perform with regular use for gigging. We'll start off with features, and I can't imagine giving this amplifier anything other than a 10. It has everything you could possibly want in an amplifier to give you every single sound you would want on stage, and even with a lack of a line out, I still can't give this anything other than a 10. As for volume, it is an incredibly loud amplifier, but there are amplifiers I have played and owned that are louder. This is 90 watts, and well, I've owned some amplifiers that are well north of 100, so I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. As for practicality, it is a heavy amplifier, and of course it's a tube amplifier, so you will have to look after it and make sure that it gets new tubes every now and again. But since it's a combo and you can lock wheels in place to be able to roll it around, it is pretty darn practical, so I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. As for quality, I would love to give this a perfect score, but there are little tiny things about it that just don't measure up to absolutely the most exquisitely built amplifiers on the market. So I'm still going to give it a really good 9 out of 10. Value looks at how much you get for your money, and while this is a lot of amplifier, this is also a lot of money. $2,500 may not sound like much compared to things like Dumbles or Trainwrecks, but it's still a lot to spend for an amplifier in this age of digital emulation, so I'm going to, even though it has a lot of features and I really like it, a 7 out of 10, bringing the stage score to a total of 44 out of 50. And the PaulScore is 87 out of 100, putting it at the top of every single amplifier I have ever owned. Yes, this list contains all of the amplifiers that I've owned over the course of my life, some of which I still own. And yes, you do see right, the Mesa Boogie triple rectifier gets an 11 out of 10 for volume. It's my list, I can do what I want, and that was a 150 watt monster. Looking at just the living room score, you can see how it stacks up against other amplifiers. And yes, it does tie my favorite living room amp of all time, the Mad Amp Mini-Mat, which, while I believe it beats the Mesa Boogie in tone, it just doesn't have as many features as the Mesa Boogie, so it loses out in the fun category, and it didn't look quite as cool, so I gave the Mesa Boogie the edge over it there too. Going to the stage score, and the Mesa scores second place to my Cherrytone AH50, and my AH50 only beats it out by 1 point. I think that the AH50 may be the best stage amplifier I have ever played in my entire life, but the Mesa Boogie is not far off. So if you've got $2,500 to spend, I'd call Leitz Music and make sure they put this Mesa Boogie aside for you before it goes away.